They say every day is for the thief, one day for the owner of the house. But ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission, has reversed the role. It is now every day for the owner of the house. If you're involved in bribery, over-invoicing, or any shady deal, the day of reckoning has come. ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission, is watching you. If you're reported for any corrupt practice, you'll be investigated, prosecuted, and punished. Corruption is harmful to our nation. Join the campaign against it by reporting any corrupt practice to ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission.
Let we join hands with ICPC, make them better.
Let's make Nigeria great again.
ICPC, they watch you.
Good day, viewers. Welcome to this week's edition of Corruption Must Go, ICPC's weekly television program. I am your host, Murna Barnabas Atiai. Since 2019, ICPC has successfully held national summits on diminishing corruption in the public sector with a focus on different sectors of the nation's economy. This annual event of the Commission is usually organized by ICPC in collaboration with the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation and other partners. Today on the program, we shall focus on the 2022 summit with the theme Corruption and the Education Sector. Do stay with us as we bring you details on the summit.
The issue of corruption is widespread. ICPC is deploying every means to get rid of corruption from both the public and private lives of Nigerians. Join ICPC every Wednesday at 3:30 p.m. as you watch Corruption Must Go. ICPC, the Anti-Corruption Commission.
You're watching Corruption Must Go. Speaking at the event which held at the State House Conference Center, Abuja, Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, while declaring the event open, said the summit was timely as it mirrors how corruption undermines educational policies and investments and creates an unfriendly learning environment for Nigerian youths. He went on to mention some of the efforts his government has made to improve the education sector, such as the Safe School Initiative, Homegrown School Feeding Program, and so on. Take a listen.
I am pleased to have participated in each of the previous summits organized by the current board of the ICPC under the leadership of Professor Bolaji Owosanoye, SAN, in collaboration with the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, targeting different aspects of our administration's commitment to fight corruption. This year's summit will mirror how corruption undermines education policies, investments, and create an unfriendly learning environment for our youth. Incessant strikes, especially by unions in the tertiary education, often imply that the government is grossly underfunding education. But I must say that corruption in the education system, from basic level to tertiary level, has been undermining our investment in the sector, and those who go on prolonged strikes on flimsy reasons are no less complicit. The 1999 Constitution places a premium on education by placing it on the concurrent list, thereby laying the responsibilities of budgeting and underwriting qualitative education on both the federal and state governments. The total education budget for each year is therefore a reflection of both federal and state budgets and should be viewed with other financial commitments in their totality. The allocation to education in the federal budget should not be considered via allocation to the Federal Ministry of Education and also academic institutions alone, but should include allocation to the Universal Basic Education transfers to TET fund and the fund from the education tax pool accounts to TET fund, etc. I am aware that the aggregate education budget in all the 36 states of the Federation and that of the federal government, combined with the internally generated revenues of the educational institutions themselves, are also a subject that requires the attention of critics of government funding of education.
Welcome back. The ICPC chairman, Professor Bolaji Owasonye, SAN, in his presentation said that corruption in the education sector has been described as stealing the future, and it ranges from recruitment of unfit or unqualified teachers, admission racketeering, exam malpractices to abuse of power by the management and governing council of educational institutions, and so on. Owasonye gave a rundown of the Commission's achievements, especially in the education sector.
In response to the recent epidemic of sexual harassment in the education sector, ICPC has constituted a special team on investigation and prosecution of sexual harassment in secondary and tertiary institutions. In collaboration with civil society, we're in the process of introducing a model policy on sexual harassment for academic institutions to adopt. We have also secured some major convictions, including that of a professor. Your Excellency, ICPC has escalated its prevention mandate in the face of very costly, time-consuming, and unpredictable outcomes of investigation and prosecution. In this regard, we're strengthening the Anti-Corruption and Transparency Monitoring Unit, MDAs. For the education sector, we collaborated with other institutions, including the NUC and the MBT, and much more recently with JAM, our co-host for this event. With JAM and DSS, we conducted last year a series of undercover operations across the country on corruption in the university admission processes, leading to the busting of syndicates and the arrest of its leaders responsible for compromising the IJMB and JUPEP. As is now widely publicized, ICPC has intensified its scrutiny of personnel and capital cost of MDAs, leading to a proactive restraining of surpluses or duplications in the budget. Just last week, the Commission, in collaboration with the Budget Office and stakeholders, met with some MDAs on the recurring surpluses in their payroll to determine proactive measures towards improving the budget process. This is to enable us to separate outright fraud from administrative lapses. We also actively reviewed the budget to prevent abuse by senior civil servants and politically exposed persons who sometimes personalize the budgetary allocation for direct benefit. In one case, a politically exposed person successfully increased the budget of an agency in order for the agency to buy a property from him. In another case, a politically exposed person inserted soft projects worth over 7 billion for a catchment population of about 1 million people in the name of empowerment. Both cases are under investigation.
You're still watching Corruption Must Go. The Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa, in his remarks, bemoaned the effects of corruption at all the levels of education sector. As he said, corruption was eroding the practical purpose of education at all levels. While pledging government's commitment to enhance productivity in the education sector, Mr. Mustafa recommended that all stakeholders collaborate with ICPC on the way forward, especially with the effective use of the National Ethics and Integrity Policy.
Education is supposed to be a panacea to corruption, but alas, it is apparent that students, teachers, administrators, and government agencies responsible for education have somewhat become corrupt practices has become endemic within the sector. This administration is very much aware that there is need for the commitment of stakeholders in the sector to take anti-corruption initiatives more seriously and deploy them to tackle corrupt practices. The National Ethics and Integrity Policy remains a tool for all stakeholders in the education sector to collaborate on a consistent basis with anti-corruption agencies, most especially the ICPC, on mechanisms for corruption prevention. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen, you would agree with me that the purpose of education cannot be realized without anti-corruption. What we are experiencing today at the Joint Admission and Matriculation Board JAM under the leadership of Professor Ishak Oloyede is a good example of leadership anti-corruption. We need more of such in the entire education sector. It is the determination of the present administration to use anti-corruption measures to improve the human and institutional governance structures generally, and in the education sector in particular, for the realization of enhancing the productive capacity in terms of the nation on a continuous basis.
This is Corruption Must Go, ICPC's weekly television program. A major highlight of the day was a keynote address delivered by Professor Attahiru Jega on the theme Corruption and the Education Sector. Professor Jega dealt extensively on both corruption within the education sector and corruption in the wider public sector as it affects the education sector. He went on to make recommendations such as the rising of an active citizenry that will demand quality education for their children, increase in the deployment of transparency, accountability, and promoting tools such as ICT, Teachers' Code of Conduct, amongst others, to mitigate corrupt practices in the education sector.
Education, as everybody says, is the foundation of any country's growth and development. And if we do not fund education well, or even the little funds that come into the sector are being stolen brazenly, or a lot of the practices which undermine quality, access, and integrity in the system are allowed, then obviously the entire foundation of progress and development in a country is undermined. So we really need to address this. And I have some suggestions, about 6. I may not have to mention all, but the first one I have already alluded to. It is very, very important to recognize that fighting corruption, particularly with regards to education, cannot be done in isolation. We cannot just focus on corruption within the education sector. And by the way, some of the most prominent cases of corruption that come to public light are issues related to sexual harassment, which are very, very serious and need to be addressed, but in terms of extent and magnitude, they are much, much fewer relative to the other aspects of corruption in the system. So we really need to have a holistic approach, not only to addressing all aspects of corruption within the system, but in particular focusing to those aspects of corruption from the public sector as they impact upon the education sector. Secondly, I think to fight corruption effectively, while the institutions are doing their best, we need to encourage what other countries are doing, which has given results. In this country, we have lagged behind compared to other countries in terms of mobilizing communities to have school management boards that are community-based. It's very, very important to get people of integrity from within the communities to be part of a school management committee that can monitor what is going in terms of access, in terms of quality, in terms of facilities, and the key thing is to get people of integrity. Of course, otherwise it will also become another cycle of corrupt practices. But it's very, very important. Other countries have done it. It has worked. We need to begin to do that. That is inclusiveness in terms of monitoring what goes on in the schools, ensuring the appropriated funds from the government are rightly spent, and also to a large extent minimizing some of the petty corruption that goes in, particularly at the primary, secondary, and some tertiary levels of education. So citizen involvement is very important. Thirdly, I was very pleased to hear the chairman of the ICPC speak about how increasingly tools and technology are being deployed, and this is very, very important. And there needs to be a government policy that emphasizes the increasing use of technology in this regard. With regards to budgeting, or with regards to teaching code of conduct, or with regards to performance-based contracting, I think these are very, very important to not only mitigate, but drastically reduce corrupt practices within the education sector.
You're welcome back. This is still Corruption Must Go. The event also featured a goodwill message from the Honorable Minister of Education, Malam Adamu, who commended ICPC for synergizing with the education sector to tackle corruption. He further appealed to all anti-corruption agencies in Nigeria to deepen the efforts of the president, especially in tackling systemic corruption in order to liberate the nation.
The ICPC has consistently adopted multifaceted approaches to tackling corruption, including the preventive approach, which education and general enlightenment represent. And as he has said, and I will say it again, corruption is a real, or the final, or the ultimate manifestation of the failure of education, because education actually is not the imparting of facts or figures or theories or even practice. Education is the building of character. And you know, when there is corruption, it means character is totally absent. And when character is absent, there is just no education. So we are very happy that you are focusing on this. And my appeal to ICPC and EFCC and anybody who will be fighting corruption in Nigeria is to deepen what Mr. President has done.
Corruption in the educational sector. Corruption in the educational sector. Corruption in the educational sector. Donald Trump once implored Liberty University graduates to remember this. Nothing worth doing ever comes easy, he says. Following your convictions means you may be able to face criticism from those who lack the same courage to do what is right. He said, the only people I've ever met who are very successful in their fields are the people who will do the right thing at the right time, at anywhere, and are motivated by a sense of purpose. For it often beats my imagination when I see that one of the world's major problems of corruption is being found mostly among students, among children like me. See, I have come to understand that it is not only for the fact that we as children need to stop corruption, but it's a must that we stop this act known as corruption in our children's lineage. Once I heard a song by the Cock Sparrow, and in that song are the lines, because you're young, you turn between a world of hate and a world of dreams, so much to lose and so much to gain, so much to fight for and so much to change. I then realized that the children of today have so much potential to make a difference in our nation. We have the power to make a change. We have the capability of raising the pride in our status of our country, Nigeria. All we need to do is alleviate the same problem known as corruption. I understand that as children, it's only through mistakes we make we learn when we went wrong. It's only when we're far from home we realize where we truly belong. It's only when we close our eyes our dreams seem clear and bright, and it's only in the darkest hours we truly see the light. It's It's only when we lose our way, we pray to the stars above. And it's only in the times of grief we learn the true meaning of love, saying, all sins that tend to try us, but we must strive and give our best. I believe God Almighty is watching over us, and He guides us in our quest. Because a hero to me is not just a person who died for their country, or went into a burning building or stuff like that. A hero to me is a single mother who survives every day by herself, a teenager against all odds getting through life, an alcoholic working into a rehab center, a father being not just a father, but a friend, a caregiver, a supporter, a brick wall for his kids, a student, a child who no matter what does the right thing and stands up for what is right. That to me is a hero, a person who is not just there, but is there, living, breathing, and surviving. I, Jeremy Olamide Farouk, stand against corruption.
The summit also coincided with the 2022 International Teachers' Day, which is a day set aside to celebrate teachers, their impacts and efforts in shaping the future of the nation. Like it is often said, the transformation of education begins with teachers. On this note, I wish to say Happy International Teachers' Day to all the great, sincere, and hard-working teachers out there. That is all time will permit us to take on this week's edition of the program. We hope to bring you more on the summit next week. Thank you for watching, and remember to follow us on our social media platforms at ICPC Nigeria. You can also watch previous editions of the program on our YouTube channel. Thank you for staying with us, and bye for now. I am Murna Barnabas Atiai.